What is up, y'all? Welcome back to the Songwriter Support stream. I usually stream on Twitch on Wednesdays, but I'm thinking about switching it to YouTube. Just because there's people that respond on here and are grateful for the content that I post on here, and I feel like it's something where trying this and going this way with the channel is going to help. And if people end up enjoying watching the stream more on here and it's consistent, like I might switch it over to Twitch just one day out of the week. But I'm trying to do like a more consistent stream. Like maybe it's Wednesday earlier in the day or Monday earlier in the day, just like somewhere where not only I can get people involved in the conversation that I really want to talk about, which is really the music industry, making music, how a lot of the modern spirituality that's involved. If you've ever been in the music industry or you've been around the music industry, you realize like how demonic a lot of the things are. It's not like everything's demonic, but there's a lot of things that tie to the demonic realm, like that tie to the negative side of spirituality. And when you start digging deeper, right? Like for me, it was like seeing it firsthand, not signing a deal or anything, but seeing people who were openly satanic and just being like, yeah, I'm cool with it, and and this is before I really understood Jesus Christ. Like, this is before I really even understood reading the Bible every day, having more discipline. And then I gotta figure out what's going on. Warning, YouTube Creators Studio. Oh, is it going now? Okay, so maybe it's fixed, but it's like, let me see. Huh. Weird. See, now it's good. Auto stop. What is that? No idea. Okay, so. But yeah, I'm thinking about switching over the stream to here, like making it every Wednesday or like every Monday. Probably earlier in the day too. I need to be more consistent. But on that note, just discipline. I think what is important with all of this, right, is that when you lack discipline, and I've had to learn this too, like when I lack discipline, it affects so many parts of my life. Like it affects so many other things that are going on. Like whether that, oh goodness, this is all. See, it just like, it makes your life sloppy and you don't even know it. You don't even realize it at times. So like if you're not disciplined about your sleep or your Bible study or things like that, right? It just opens doors for you to slack. It opens doors for you to really lack in areas. What's good, man? What is good? But I plan on now streaming on YouTube because I actually normally was having this stream on Twitch, but I have nowhere near the following or like nowhere near the people that actually engage with the stream or like check anything out. And I think it's important because I want the discipline. Like I want something that allows me to build a community with people, but also as a like discipline, like something that I do every week consistently. And usually I take Wednesday as like a good day to like, okay, and I need to start waking up early again. But wake up, go hit the gym, do dishes, do laundry. Like that's the day of the week that I just take off from working or doing anything like that, because the work that I do, like, I can just turn on the job any day and work, which is amazing. It's a gift, and sometimes is a curse when it's down. But at the same time, God has just been blessing me with everything that I need, and I recognize that. Right. Right. And I think the problem that I had with discipline was that I would achieve, I'd have these goals, but the ways I would celebrate would probably be too far off the realm. Like, I realized one of my biggest sins for a very long time was gluttony, and I had to learn why. Like, and it wasn't just like, oh, I'm not eating or not fasting or things like that. It would be the reasons why I would eat. And sometimes I would celebrate by being like, oh, I did good at the gym. I did that. Let me go get ice cream. Let me go get this. And it would spiral. Or there'd be times where, wow, I've been working so hard, I'm going to go get this or this, right? So I think with discipline, right, how we celebrate is important too. Because there's times where, yeah, exactly, the intention of it. And that's the problem, is I had to realize that the intention initially was like, yeah, I'm celebrating. But then deep down, it was actually stress. Like, it was like me stressing about something and then using food or using that as a way to respond, when that's not the way you should do it. Like, I think with discipline, the things that I work on discipline-wise, or I've been strong discipline-wise, is reading the Bible every day, exercising at least. My goal for this year is definitely like 5 times a week, but not like extreme exercise. I would say usually about 30 minutes to an hour every day of the week, and then the weekends, like, I usually work or do other things like that. But I think that a lot of people, me included, discipline should be what we should be looking forward into, because if you don't, right, we got to think about, right, exactly. And that actually goes into what I was about to say, is like, because we have to be disciplined, we have to be vigilant. Sometimes now, with the new AI technology and people trying to sell you on ideas like, we want the quick, easy fix, to finances, for example, I'm in debt, but I'm slowly been making better moves towards it. And I've realized that what's important is, like, as much as you could trust AI or trust somebody to do it, you still have to be the one to make all the decisions. You have to be the one who has the intent. You have to be the one who drives all of that. Because if you're not aware, you're just letting your vices and letting whatever parts of you, right? You're just letting that dictate your life. And I used to do that for such a long time. Like, I used to go buy coffee most days out of the week. And, that's one where, like, everybody's like, well, it's not going to get you out of debt for sure, but it will definitely keep you in debt, especially if you're not mindful of how much you're consuming. But then on top of that too, how much you're spending. Because I was saying this on my Twitch stream before I shut it off. I did the math on how much I would spend coffee, right? You could go get a $20 coffee maker, a bag of coffee, filters, and water, and maybe even some creamer, right? You could go get that. That might cost you around $35 to $40 in most places, depending on the quality and, like, what you get, right? But then you do that math. If you bought one coffee, like one good sized coffee from Starbucks or like any place like that, and you did that same math, it would equate to the same thing. But then everything that you bought with the coffee machine and the coffee maker would have last you longer than a week. Like, it would be maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 to 4 weeks, depending on how frequent you do it. And it started making me realize that you can enjoy life. Like, there's things that you can enjoy, but sometimes we pay the price for convenience. We pay the price for wanting something right now. And that's why I think even the music industry and a lot of industries promise you that. Like, especially when you start to get down the path. So this is great that we're talking about this. So I had an experience with a guy. His name was Alexander. He was a Billboard producer, and I got tapped into him from like people that I trusted for like advertising or marketing in the music industry, not knowing that I was just essentially given tools that they use in the music industry, but not realizing that a lot of these tools, it's a scam. Like, it's just used to inflate numbers. It's used to inflate somebody's ego. So I get introduced to this guy, and I'm like paying $50 a month to get loops or get beats that I made with his loops sent to recording artists. And this is before I even really got in, met Jesus and realized how good having him and just having someone to relate to and talk to was. And what was so important about it was eventually it all started unfolding. I'm like, wait, the guy paid Billboard for an article on like that he has a satanic cult, and he's open to like occult, the occult, and he's more open to the darker sides of spirituality, and he talks about polygamy, and he had people who had sigil tattoos on them, so they were like a part of a cult. They were for sure a cult. And you start realizing, like, wait, so when you start getting deeper in the music industry, a lot of people, it's almost like the pyramid scheme or like the MLMs, right? Where there's somebody making money at the top. There's somebody who's controlling at the top, but then they like try to convince other people to get in and like get, and they're convincing you with opportunities and all this. No, this is the quick way to get your connection into the industry because these people are out in Atlanta. These people are out in LA, and like they're flying out there and they're doing all that. But then you start to realize, like, what am I really spending my money on? Like, what am I really spending my time on? Is this something that's actually fulfilling to my life, or am I just trying to make plays and be famous or like get some sort of validation from the world? And it shows in a lot of what people stand for in the music industry now more than ever. Right, exactly. And that's a big part of it, is that I had to start questioning what was going on. And when I did at that time, I actually had a home. When I was living in Indiana, I had a house. And I told the guy eventually, I'm like, hey, look, I'm good. I'm like in process. I didn't know if I had a plumbing leak that could have cost me like $10,000. So I told him, like, look, dude, I'm just getting out of this. And he was like really pushy about me staying, because there were some big opportunities that were coming up with big artists that are very well known in the industry across the world, that I had some of my loops and stuff sent to them, and they were going to be using them, and then it just fell apart. And I started to realize, like, okay, this was something that was used to, it's guiding me towards the thing I want to do. Oh, there you go. That's awesome. That's awesome that people that were on the last stream actually returned too. Like, thank you guys for showing up. Right. And that's the big thing. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And I saw something the other day where somebody was talking about half-price flights. And I'm just like, how? Okay, the Chase Bank fraud, that one, okay. I don't even understand how people fell for that one. Like, once I knew about the Cash App scams, like, I never fell for a Cash App scam, but once I heard about it, like, this is a thing, because I knew people that they're drug dealers, like, and so, of course, they know about Cash App. They knew about, like, how to get money from people. And I eventually saw some of those dudes like on Snapchat way before a lot of these other scams came apart. Like they were promoting products and stuff like that or other things. And I'm just like, somebody's getting scammed on this. Like it just did not feel right. And I've realized that there's times in my life where I wanted the quick fix. I wanted it, and it cost me. It put me into debt. It put me into places I didn't want to be. So sometimes I think we even get lost with so when I was working at Sweetwater, that's a great example too. My goal was never to sell people things that they didn't need or that they didn't want and need. Like, because there's some people that could afford it. Like, they could afford adding this piece, but they wouldn't question, like, how does this actually affect what I do, and would it actually be useful for me to use? Because gear helps, but it doesn't make better music. Like, a lot of times you have to sit there and learn how the piece of tech works. You got to know how to implement it into your system, use the right cables, use the right quality of cables, and then on top of that, making sure your computer is just running smooth enough to be able to handle all of that. So I really think that what I've noticed with the music industry and music technology, right, is that it became more about selling products. It became more about selling products to people than actually helping people. Because that's why I even worked at Sweetwater. When I got out of college, I had felt like, okay, this company's privately owned at the time. It had been growing. There was a lot of amazing technology, but it wasn't as focused. It eventually got to the point where it was about to go public, and it got more about selling products and being pushy to people than actually being a knowledgeable person available to help somebody like buy the thing that they actually needed and wanted and made sure it was implemented correctly. And there'd be more and more before I had like quit, because that's the only job I ever quit flat out, because I was over 300 pounds. I was miserable. I didn't know God. Like, I was just, and it's crazy. I've kept off most of that weight. I'm probably around 245, 240. But I was over 300 then, and I've been slowly working on it. That's why I want to bring that model of like discipline. Even with this, like even with making music, right? It's not always about sticking to the quick fix or like, oh, I'm going to use AI, or, oh, this person can get me on. So it's like having discipline and being okay with trying new things and knowing that you don't know everything and be willing to learn and grow as a person. And so that's what my goal is kind of with the channel too, is like keeping the content here focused on like prayer, worship, but also to like help supporting songwriters on their walk through the music industry, because it's very easy to get deceived. It's so easy. And now I'm even seeing videos. I watched a Curtis King video today actually talking about DistroKid and how, and I also saw Anthony Fantano's video on DistroKid about how the DistroKid union tried, coming to an agreement with DistroKid, and they decided to union bust and fire off pretty much everybody that was union and minimize their workforce when they're seeing record profits. And it was starting to become that way at Sweetwater at the time too, because they were about to be bought out by a private equity firm. It doesn't mean that they're bad. It's just inherently what happens when you hit $1 billion. Like, seriously, the CEO who owned the company, Sweetwater, Chuck Surak, had come out and said to us that it was more of a tax problem to privately own $1 billion company than it was to make it public. So that's why he decided to eventually sell majority share to a private equity firm. And then what they did with that was made it more about, okay, well, if you aren't having this kind of relationship with the customer, then we're going to take more of your commission. And that's not what I had agreed to. So I was like, dude, I knew this was coming. I'm getting out. And there were dudes that were making like, okay, and living in Indiana, I was making $70K and I could afford a home. There's dudes there making like 200 to like 600K a year. I think the top guy definitely made like, at one point he made over 600K a year. Like insane money in sales. And then I think he ended up getting a manager position. So it just goes to show that in all branches, right? In all ways, there's some sort of deception that's going on where the goal was to sell you products. And I think that that's the toughest thing about the music industry, because there's good people that are making products that are actually good. Like, for example, I love Shaperbox. The guy who created Cable Guy's Shaperbox, like, incredible software. It's something that's very useful, and it's something that's creative and new and hasn't really been done before. Whereas, like, there's tons of other people, for example, as someone who was in sales, you'd see the Neve 1073. Okay, I was graced with the opportunity to meet Rupert Neve before he died because I was working at Sweetwater and I got to check out, some of his like the last consoles he made before he died in being 90. And just knowing that everybody has copied his preamp, like the Neve 1073, yeah, that's been reiterated so many times by so many people, but there's only really like one or two companies that do it authentically anymore. Like everyone else, they get close to parts, close to chassis, and then try to sell you a product because, if you go to every major studio, they have the Neve 1073, they have the 2-Tech CL1B compressor, and then they have the Sony C800. That is it. But when they started realizing, like, they're not selling as much anymore, and we can't get the parts, we really can't get as many of the parts, all these other companies started hopping in, and after, like, a certain amount of time with trademarks that other companies had, essentially, making a cheaper version and just copying the original. So it became more accessible and more people had it. But, it's not about exclusivity. It's about realizing, like, do you really need that to make a good song? Do you really need all of that technology to make a good song? And as somebody who fell for that trap, the answer is no. The real answer is like, do you have enough discipline to sit down and understand what you already have? And I think that's why God took me through all of this. Was that every time that I tried doing it on my own and tried like making my own waves with music and things, it always failed. And it didn't have to do with just like how I was putting money into advertising. It was just really like, was I making the best stuff for the best reason? Was I really making the stuff that I enjoy to listen to? But then on top of that, like, is this something that I really am putting enough discipline behind and putting enough effort behind? Because there's two sides to this too. And I think people get lost in this. They either get lost in analysis paralysis, which basically like, okay, I'm going to hyper-analyze this sound and I'm going to make this and laser focus in. Or they get lost in like, well, everybody's already done this, so I don't want to do it anymore. Or they do actually a third way. They kind of like just use splice loops and like use the quick way or use like AI tools. And you realize like in all of those ways, there's no authenticity. And that's what makes good music is like it doesn't have to be this expensive recording setup. It just makes it easier. Like if you have an expensive studio and a recording setup, cool. That's awesome. It just makes it easier for you to put the song together. But it doesn't make the song better. It never necessarily does. Like the energy, we have to understand with recording technology, it's literally energy being captured into a system, being pushed into a crystal, and then that crystal converts that, like usually a quartz clocking crystal, converts that information from analog to digital, and then does it back through a digital and analog converter. So we have to understand that the energy that's being put into it is really what makes the song. And that's the truth. Like, even if you had, there's only so much you can do to try and polish a turd. You know what I mean? Like, you could polish a turd all you want. Everybody's still going to look and see right through that coat and realize it's a turd. And I think for the longest time, God didn't allow me to go down these paths, thankfully, because if I did, like, who knows if I would have ever come back. Because that one dude ended up, Alexander ended up becoming a 33-degree Mason. And then openly saying, I wonder if I should start a cult again. And he, like, openly posted this on his Instagram. And I was like, whoa, I am grateful I got out of there. But it's the truth. Like, is understanding, if you understand the technical sides of things, like if you understand how the technology actually works, and then you understand what made every song good, like even before the technology existed, right? Like what made songs good from the 30s, 40s, and 50s? It was the energy behind it. It was the artist behind it. They had microphones that were maybe even less quality than this, and this isn't $100 microphone that's designed for live performance on the stage. So understanding that, right? And that's the thing about Sweetwater. That's when I was there, we had, as a sales engineer, we had so much access to information. It was insane. Like, not only could we get the manuals and stuff, there was stuff that wasn't even in the manuals, and there was stuff that the manufacturers representatives that we had in-house, because we had that close a relationship with certain manufacturers, that like we could just ask them and be like, hey, you know, how does this work? And they would show us, like they would give us a deeper dive on whatever we really had questions about. There's only some stuff we couldn't, just because the actual manufacturer didn't know. Like, and so when you understand it at that level, that like no matter the amount of gear you buy, it just is like filling a void. It's kind of like cool. It's like a Funko Pop collection if you really think about it, because it's like you don't need it, you just really want it, and it helps. Because it's not like it was in the 80s. It's not like it was in the 90s where like, well, more so the 60s, 70s, and 80s, where having the technology was so revolutionary that you couldn't make a song that sounded like that without those tools. Now we have so many emulations of the real thing. Like we have emulations of preamps, like I was saying, from Rupert Neve. The guy who created, he's dead. He died only a few years ago. He lived to be 90, like over 90. And his technology is replicated so many times. And it was because the way it captures energy, the way it captured your sound was incredible. The Neve stuff always sounds good. Like, and that's why the circuit's been duplicated, replicated, and then now emulated in the electronic realm so many times. That's why you can see, you can go on Waves, you can go on just about any one of them, Universal Audio, any of them. They're going to have an emulation of a Neve 1073 or the EQ. So you get that sound, because the way that the EQ worked, the way that this actual circuit worked, made a certain character or a certain sound color. Like it added distortion or really analog warmth, because there's some similarities. There's different types of distortion. There's different types of sound characteristics that you can find. And, you know, the line between distortion and analog warmth is getting more blurred every day because the technology is so good. Like, the technology is so good at emulating the real stuff. It's almost like, do you even need it anymore? And we're now in this age where, like, I think more than anything, authenticity is going to beat volume. Because all these years we've been told and lied to by the industry, like, give us volume, give us volume. And now that AI is out, it's making me wonder why. Like, what are they use? Now it's like, are they just using it for training models? So I just want people to understand that, like, a lot of the music industry, right, in the way that it's now working, because it evolves so quickly, it's changing so quickly. Like, I last year was working with somebody who wanted to get signed by Atlantic, like that was something that they wanted, and probably a few months after not working with them and then like losing everything, I see that Atlantic fired off a ton of their staff. So it's like, why is the music industry having all these huge cuts? And then now it's getting to this point where people are coming out about Spotify taking down their music, and then DistroKid not going to bat for them, or these distributors not going to bat for them. So I think now we're in this era of understanding that, like, we should focus on making good stuff and then finding out what ways we can get it to people. Because that's the dark side of it, is that really the industry is run by Satan. Like, if you really, like, I've had enough examples in my life that I'm 100% convinced of that. And if it's not by a person, it's the entity, like, really is being controlled. It's being controlled by darker forces and principalities. And God gave us this gift to make music, to praise him. And when we use it so selfishly, right, and for our own carnal desires, like, you realize it's a void. Like, there's just this void that you're like constantly trying to fill with other things, whether that be drugs, whether that be alcohol, whether that be like buying gear. Maybe it's coping with coffee. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I did that too. And it made me realize just how much all of the things that I experienced in the industry, it's tied to, like, spending your time and energy building the other system instead of building God's kingdom. That's really the main part of it. Because if you're distracted away from God and you're constantly, like, distracted away from God, like, you're not focusing on the thing that he wants you to do. And I think that's always been my biggest battle, is like, am I doing the right thing? And that goes from other traumatic experiences that I've had. But I've learned that the music industry, every time I got involved with it, it makes you realize how much selfishness is being idolized. Like, being selfish is what is being pushed. And like, oh, you're broke, you're this, you're that. It's like, I don't identify with that, because it just makes you realize how much you don't have to worry about, wow, this person is doing this with this and they've got all the studio time, they've got this and that. It's like, that's what the enemy wants you to focus on. They want you to focus on the things that don't bring glory to God. Because the more you focus on that, the more you're putting your energy and your attention to it, the more you're building that, the more you're funding it. And the thing that you're funding really is like your own carnal desire. That's the tough part, is it's like your own fleshly desire at the end of the day. And that's what tricks you. Because that's why we have to deny our flesh. And I think the closer I've gotten to God, the more I've realized how much I was deceived by the music industry in so many ways. But weirdly enough, every time that I would like really think I'm going to break through and have something amazing come through for me, it would be like, wow, you'd be a threat to this industry. And then them shortly saying, I don't know why I said that. Like I was always astounded by that. That, people who've watched my streams, watched my stuff, they know the quality of stuff I put together even before I mix it. And that was always the thing. And I really think it's because of there's a greater calling that I have with helping people understanding this and putting my own music out there for sure. But just helping people understand, like, you don't have to go buy all the gear. You don't have to buy all the plugins. Like, it's good. It helps. But then eventually you just start realizing I'm like digging myself into a financial hole, trying to fill a hole of thinking that I'm not good enough or I'm not doing things good enough, when that's not the truth. Like, ultimately you are supposed to just keep trying and fail, but don't let yourself get into that either analysis paralysis where you overanalyze things and then you never finish the song, or that self-deprecation of I'm not good enough, so I'm going to give up now. And I think that there's even been times recently where I'm not going to lie, I've fallen into both categories. It's so easy because it's like you look at a plugin, you look at something, you could just zone in and lock in, and now you're just hyper focused on the one detail, the one thing. But then there's other times where it's like, man, this isn't working out the way I thought it would. I want to give up right now. So I think on that note, let's actually make some music. Let's focus on actually making some music today. Because I know I've been yapping for the past half an hour. But I think it was for a good reason. Because I just don't want people... I really want to make every stream more focused on, okay, yeah, this industry's crazy. And a lot of the tech and tools that were created for it, they're designed to just get you to spend money. Like, you don't... Like, there's some tools, it's if you know how they work, you should have them. But then there's a lot of tools where you're like, you don't need them. I had them. Like, I had access to them, and I was just like, I ended up not doing anything with them. And it was just because I, like, overanalyzed it or just did things that were not bringing real value to people and to life. And I think that that's another problem with this industry, is that there's a lot of people that they get off on the grift of just not really bringing you enough value to where you think you're doing it, but you're really getting scammed. Like, you're really getting grifted to the entire time. And it's not everybody. It's not like the YouTube channels. It's like really the people that are they know people in the industry, and then they use that as like a tool to sell you products or sell you services. And then the services don't even get you anywhere. Let me do like 130. Oh. Like, cause I like that chord voicing. Oh, let me see. Okay. There you go. Do do. Come on, you got this. You got this. You got this. I know you're 14 years old, computer. There you go. Am I going to have to slap you like a tube television? I might. Yeah, this computer that I'm streaming on is 14 years old. That blows my mind. Still works. Okay, we're not about evil, so let's try like. Oh, those are like okay. I get the vibe. Ooh, yeah. Yeah. Today is the 8th. Today is the 8th, yeah. All right. Y'all like snacks? I had to go get me a snack. Get you some popcorn. It's about to get heated in here. Show love, not division. Okay. Show love, not division. Not division. Okay, so now we're going to make it, because I am not a woman, we're going to make it sound like one. Some auto-tune would help. Okay. Not going to lie, the Waves tune, they've made it sound a lot better. Doesn't sound like auto-tune, but it sounds a lot better than it used to, which is good. Oh, hold on. Yo, that just turned that into that. So that's why I like this tool. It's very much like a sound design tool. Allows you to like really make your own sounds out of whatever. Halftime on there. Let me see. Oh, I didn't even think about that. That sounds funny. $9.09. What? Yeah, that sounds like a fart. Okay. Alright, stop eating, start logging in. Okay. Let's fix that. Come on. Okay. And then what was it? It was the motions one, right? Yeah. I think it was the motions one that, yep, this one had all the cool, like... There we go. Now I'm wondering too if I like change the key. I go down yeah, I feel like going down a half step might do it justice. Oh yeah, gotta change the auto tune to B. Both of them. honestly, you don't need Pro Tools. I would say unless you absolutely, even then now, I don't even know if they've updated the technology with other software where like you can have borderline zero latency. But that's the only reason why people were using Pro Tools is like if you're dealing with major studio clients that all work with Disney or a major label, they had so yeah, FL is good. FL is that's a good way to produce. I think a lot of people work in that. Ableton, I like it just because it plays with audio a little nicer. I mean, FL has definitely come a long way. They've updated a lot. But this one just plays with audio more creatively. Pro Tools does it more precisely, but Ableton does it in, like, you have more creative tools available to you with some of the audio stretching and the MIDI. Pro Tools is horrible with MIDI information, which is why if you do, like, making beats, FL Studio and Ableton are great because it's super easy to implement all that. But I've learned that just the only reason why you would consider Pro Tools is if you're dealing with the industry. And honestly, I think nowadays the industry is just, I don't even know, man. Like, it's not only satanic, like I 100% agree. I've learned enough about it, but it's just gotten to this point where they're doing too much for money and not enough to, like, be creative. Like, they're just putting people on because they're like, oh, they're hot. They'll make a lot of money. So I think now more than ever, it's about, like, making your own website. Like, Curtis King has been predicting this for years, man, and it's just coming true. Like, making your own website, streaming it on there. Like, yeah, you could use SoundCloud, but they still limit you. They still want you to kind of work in the same way that, like, DistroKid or all the distribution platforms want you to work. They're like the new gatekeepers. That's like the best way of putting it, is that FL and like all of the, it doesn't matter what recording software you use as long as you understand like how to make good music from your heart and not worry so much about understanding everything with the tools. Sometimes like you doing something by accident is what creates a good sound ultimately, or like trying new things. Like I think even today, so this sound, I like sang an idea earlier in the stream. It was like, and that kind of pumping you're hearing is the side chain that I had. But then I put Shaperbox on there and tried one of the new presets that they had because I downloaded the Reverb Shaper. And yeah, thank you. That was me singing. And then I like pitched it up. So then I did that and it just turns it into a straight synth. It's like, I was like, whoa. And that was a preset. And that comes from that same exact. But then all of this, that was the other thing, is like, it's about like, the reason why I like Ableton is it's easier for me to group tracks and do more things creatively with audio or plugins. So like in FL, you got to use the mixer a lot more to do some of these things. And then print them. Like, it's easier to do it in the mixer and then print the audio. That's what I've just kind of seen across the board. Whereas, like, with Ableton, like, okay, I wanted to group all these tracks, so I did. And then I used, like, a tape saturation from Arturia. Then halftime. Like, I would say if you do modern production, like if you're like, oh, I need to buy a plugin, dude, Shaperbox and Halftime covers so much of the ground. A lot of the Cable Guy stuff really does. Because, like, the Shaperbox does it does the side chain with the kick so perfectly. Like Like you can see the waveform and really just dial in the actual what you want to take out. That's kind of the loop I was creating earlier, and I was just structuring it out. Let's see. Thanks y'all for hopping in, for real. Like, cause that's the goal with this channel, is kind of like help people who are starting out making music, help them realize, like, yes, you can get tools. It does help, but it doesn't make the better music. Like, ultimately trying new things, experimenting, and then realizing that the industry tries to sell you products. Like, they try to sell you on ideas and products and, like, all these different things. And, you know, I'm not going to lie, I fell for it, and I had also tried, like, doing my own range of that. And what I've realized is there's some products that actually are helpful. Like, if you get good sample packs and things like that, those do help. Because then you got better sound sources to work with, and then you can always go from there, right? But then when the problem is like, oh, I'm going to sell you this beat selling course. That information probably is so old now, like it's not relevant. And then on top of that, like you don't end up creating music with people that you want to work with because you're more concerned about selling products. And I had to learn that that's just the nature of where I fell short, because I thought that that's how the industry worked. And there's a level where it does, but for the most part, it really doesn't. Like, it really doesn't work that way. Like, most of the best songs you hear, that's not how they work. Actually, I don't really metronome just because I don't have a keypad with me right now. I'm just doing it. I do a mouse. So what I would say is the metronome will usually help me if I'm like recording guitar, or if there's a part where I don't have a beat going on and I'm recording vocals. What I like to use is I mainly work in the grid and try to use like the 1632, like using the grid as where to find the bounce, because that's where a lot of it is. But if you're inputting in, like say I was using the keyboard, or if I was using like a Kai controller, some type of controller, absolutely. Just know though, like a lot of people don't know this, when you go into your audio settings, right? Like your buffer size is going to actually affect the latency. So if you have a lower buffer size, right, it's basically going to make it not only higher quality because it's not relying so much on pre-rendering it. It's basically closer to real time, so you get a better sample quality. But then on top of that, the latency, the time between you inputting the note or you recording to you hearing it back is shorter. It gives you a shorter round trip latency. So you see that number right here. Like, here's your input latency, here's your output latency. I'm not going to switch it because every time I do, I've had issues with OBS, like reading the output of my audio interface. But when I drop it to a lower number, it's going to tax your computer more. It's going to make your computer run harder. But then, on top of that, it's going to lower the latency input and output. So just know, if you have like a high buffer size and you're feeling like I'm not even though I'm hitting it as close as I can to on time, like if that buffer number is larger, that's typically why. Like you're getting more of a latency on the input. And I found out it affects MIDI and audio. Like, I didn't think it affected MIDI for the longest time, and then I started playing with it, and I started realizing that a lower buffer size is going to give you a better sample quality and a better playback and a better render typically, too. But on top of that, it's just going to tax your computer more. It's going to make the CPU run a lot harder to make that work, to make it happen. So the answer to that is it can if you're dealing with like using a controller. Like if you're using something that, because I used to have some controllers, man. Like I had some really cool stuff. I used to have an Akai Force, and I miss it because that thing was so cool. Yeah, so if you're having issues with the Akai, check your buffer size, or it should be it might be called block size in FL. If you're running a very high number block size, like it's 1048 or things like that, you may notice latency, but you'll notice that you can run way more plugins. So that's the point. Is that basically, okay, my computer is straining to run all of these plugins, you run a higher buffer size to compensate for it. But if you're like, I want sample accuracy, you use a lower number, but it's going to tax your computer more because the lower number reduces the amount of samples that are being, rendered so before playback. So it's just like closer to real time as possible. And getting the lowest number possible is typically best. And so 256 is usually the standard. But the other thing too is if you're using a PC, right? Sometimes when you like make music on PC, people do not understand, like on Windows 10 or newer, set it to best performance. Like max it out. If you're running on battery, put it on a charger. Because I guarantee you, like, performance matters more than battery life. Like, you need the performance to run this. And it helps a lot. Like, you'll notice that your computer is going to be a lot snappier and be able to do the bigger projects and more sounds. But then on top of that, I don't know if FL finally implemented this. Because my computer that I'm using right now for streaming, it's a 14-year-old gaming laptop. So it's like an old Asus Republic of Gamers. And this thing, I just made sure to upgrade the RAM and put in a better hard drive later on in the life of this computer, which was actually in the last few months. And it helped a lot. Like, so that's another thing, too, is if you feel like your computer, your PC is upgradable, check how much RAM you have and check what kind of hard drive. Because sometimes the hard drive, like, say you have samples saved to a hard drive, your hard drive, if it doesn't have very fast read or write speeds, that could be affecting the timing of, like, loading things, too. Or just things not wanting to load the way that you want them to. Is that because the hard drive, say it's like an older HDD, excuse me, instead of like a solid state drive or an SSD, that definitely affects the performance. But then on top of that, the read or write speed of the SSD that you have. Because the HDD stuff, like, that's good if you're saving, it's like a backup. Like if you want a ton of cheap memory just to back up all your projects, an HDD is good. Because then you just can get a lot of storage for super cheap. You just need to put the files on there, right? But if you're like, say you have a sample library, like I do, a solid state drive is going to make a difference. That's going to make a huge difference with that. If that's kind of like but yeah, that's going to be your, like, if there's anything I've learned from just, doing PC related audio, things like that, that's always the biggest battle is like, how do I get this thing to perform top? And the main things I've learned is it's definitely your RAM and your hard drive. Like, it all matters. It all matters. It 100% does. Just because some of the software that you might use, just the way it needs to perform, it will lag out if you don't have... Like, you don't need the top-of-the-line stuff. You just need something that's, like, good enough within the last few years. Or if you were in my case, like, I bought this laptop before I went to get my degree at Ball State in music media and production. And I remember at the time I was speaking to my grandma, and they gave me like $1,000. And they were like, "Is that enough for a laptop for recording school?" And I just laughed at that time because, like, now I would say the tech is probably good enough to handle most stuff. But 15 years ago, it's crazy to me to say, like, that was like 10 plus years ago when I went to school. Um, it was harder. Like, you needed, if you were going to buy a PC, you needed a gaming laptop, or you had to buy like a good Mac. And now what I've realized is the whole reason why they say Mac is better than PC for audio, which I don't think is as true anymore. Like, that used to be a big thing in the industry, was because Apple, Pro Tools, and Disney, they all laid in bed with each other basically and said, "Hey, look, we're going to use only this for our whole catalog moving forward." So the funny thing is Avid Pro Tools, you know, they started on PC, and I used to sell their products. So like, I know the issues people had with it on PC. I know the issues I had with it on PC. And they designed it initially on PC, but then over the years, once they started getting interest from Apple and Disney and all of these major labels, right? They basically shifted the music industry, and even Adobe did the same thing, where they wrote better code. They wrote better software for Apple products. Now, the only time it wasn't like that was when FL Studio, which was initially built on PC and PC only, and then Ableton. That was like the stronger. That was always the two that were stronger. The main reason why, though, is Apple has a thing called Core Audio. In Core Audio, the driver itself is way more stable than what a lot of the PC stuff is. But if you actually get a good audio interface now, a lot of them have like a built-in mixer and have built-in tools. So right now, like, I used to have to use other third-party drivers to output my audio from Ableton into the Stream software, into OBS, for years. But this audio interface finally updated to have a virtual mixer that allows you to actually pipe the audio real time into here. So now the tech, and I used to be a Sweetwater sales engineer, so I sold this stuff. Now the tech is so good, like, as long as you have a decent computer and a decent understanding of how to set up your software, like, you can make great music. You don't need a ton of like extra synths or like a super nice microphone. Like, you just need to know how to set it up, because you could have a nice mic, but if you don't know how to set it up properly, you don't know how to adjust that, like, it's going to throw off everything. And that's kind of why I created Songwriter Support too, was, you know, if there's people that needed one-on-one direct support to get their computers set up in the way that they need to, like file management, adjusting their audio settings, adjusting their computer settings. Like, I do work remote one-on-one, and I can remote into a computer and basically modify your settings so that you can get the performance that you need to make music, but also to help people with like songwriting and production and learning how the stuff works in a more direct way for like what they're looking to learn. Because you can learn by just messing around and kind of like getting into it, but sometimes when you get to the deeper questions of like, okay, what are time-based effects like reverb, delay, chorus, how do I get higher quality mixes, or like how does a parametric EQ work, or things of that nature, and you already have the tools, but you just don't understand like how you apply them for your purposes. That's kind of why I developed Songwriter Support, because I've realized that there's a lot of people that love to make music, and they don't want to just go to AI or like go to some engineer who doesn't care about them, doesn't care. They're just like there to record you. And I've seen it so many times. Like you go to a studio, you pay good money, and it's just a dude who barely knows what he's doing in a Pro Tools system. Um, you know, maybe just being a little condescending to you afterwards about what you just recorded, and like it's almost better and easier for you to record from the comfort of your home and get all of the things that you need. And I just haven't started like vamping it up again until recently, because I was homeless at one point. It was crazy. I had a whole bunch go on in my life, and I realized like the nature of the music industry and just kind of how much I needed to get closer to him and learn that I have no control over my life, but like I can still be a blessing to people. And I think that when I initially created it, I worked with somebody to prove the concept. Can you remotely work with an artist and meet up with them in person and help them on their journey of like finishing songs and actually releasing stuff? Good way to come up with drums, I would say first, a lot of people do like two-step. Like I think a very simple way that people tend to come up with drums, like I usually keep it very simple starting out, kind of like, okay, clap on the 3. So if like you're on the metronome, it's like, and it all depends on genre, okay? So this is like hip hop. So when you say what's a good way to come up with drums, what's important is what genre. So start there. Like start with the genre that you want to work in. If you're doing dubstep, if you're doing house, if you're doing techno, R&B, they're all going to have different vibes. So I think even before you go to say what's a good way to come up with drums, start with what's the tempo? Like what's the speed I want to like really work in first? And then go from there, because then that might determine, okay, what hi-hat sounds do I want to use, what sounds do I want to incorporate, and then what rhythms do I want to use. Because like the way I kind of make drums sometimes is, all right, I'm going to play this section right here and kind of show you what I had for the drums, and you're going to hear it and you'll be like, okay, that's a little interesting. So for me, like, I like to start with a simple bass. Like, a lot of times I don't implement the kick drum unless I've made like a 808 or like a lower pattern. So a lot of times where I start is melodically, because if you start there, you can kind of get the vibe, the tone of the song, like that's really it. And if you watch the stream too, you'll see, if you go back on the stream, you'll see where I started. I started with this first track right here. And then I went for the drums. That's my approach. Sometimes I do start with the drums just because I want to bounce. Like I have a certain vibe that I'm going for. So I've learned that like in most cases, melody, bass, and then drums helps a lot, because a lot of times with the bass, I don't do like the Travis Scott or like some of the R&B stuff where it's like really long. I sometimes do, but like for the most part I do hip hop, so I like getting the bounce with the 808 and then making pockets from there, like kind of starting from that. Or like, okay, if I want to get the vibe of where I should pocket the 808, just do a real simple clap, a real simple two-step hi-hat. But for me, I didn't want a simple two-step hi-hat. I wanted to try something like, okay, it's not too crazy, it's like simple. And then to get that like one hi-hat, so like for example, it was like this. Kind of like an effect, right? what I like to do is I took that same exact rhythm that I made, and then I used a plugin. I used Arturia has this like motions plugin. This thing is insane. Like on the new update that they did for the FX collection, which I mean, like I love the Arturia stuff. Like this stuff, it gives you all the mixing tools, like all the stuff that you want to like do, actual mixing. But then the creative tools are crazy. Like this one's so crazy. They have one that I might try it on a different sound. Like hold on, I might try it on because I like this one. They have some like really crazy effects, like this fragments one. Dude, thank you. And it's like a granular synthesis engine. So you hear what it's doing. It's like it took the same exact sound that I had and it just made it way more insane without me doing too much. And there's some plugins where it's like that. Shaperbox is one of them for me. Like it gives you the control, but then it does. And then there's some where it's like I don't even fully understand the plugin, like motions or fragments. I just started into it, but I get the concept. Like fragments is granular, which means it takes grain splices of the audio. That's what you see, kind of like those little yellow lines. And it's essentially like spreading them out and doing weird things and like taking pieces of the audio and mangling it. Versus the motions one, which just had cool effects. Like it's a little bit more straightforward. In the sense of, well, actually, it's more deep, but it's more straightforward with how it does certain things. So it's telling you, okay, this is messing with the volume. This is like a noise. There's no noise going on. This is like, okay, this is how it's playing with the filter. And what these are essentially, these lines are telling you if it's jumping up or down. So this is amplitude or volume. This one's telling you, okay, the filter's just doing a sweep. And it's telling you sync-wise, too, like how it's synchronizing to all of it. So that's why this one's so crazy. Because you're just like, okay, you can play with volume, noise, filter. And then it's got all these extra effects in here. So here's the reverb and delay. And then what's even crazier is it has this beat repeat feature. So it's like you could take the reverb and delay and time stretching and all of that and put it to a sequencer, so every time it plays through, it's like going in a sequence. Oh, sorry. Wrong sound, but still, like, it's just basically creating the super crazy textural pattern. And that's why I like it. Because it's one thing to make a good plugin, it's another thing to make a good plugin with good presets, which that's what Arturia does. Like, all their presets are good. Like, all of the sounds and the ways that you can use them are good. Like if you have Analog Lab, like say you got that for free, all of the sounds are good. All the free libraries for it are good. Like they just make quality stuff. And I mean, I used to sell their products, like, and I would still stand it. Like I decided even when I worked at Sweetwater, like I ended up buying their products afterwards and keeping them just because they made such quality stuff all the time. And this is why I'm like, I upgraded and got that EFX Fragments. I put it on once and I was like, what does this do? And it like took sounds that I thought sucked and made them so insane but usable. Like not like to the point where it's just kind of like, oh, this sounds crazy. Because there's sometimes where you want something, you're like, this sounds weird in like a pad or a texture. It's not really like a sound that draws you to it. It just adds space. And you're like, oh, that's cool. That's crazy. Or you have a sound where like you hear it and it's so distracting. You're like, this is crazy. I can't use this. Like, this is too distracting. I mean, unless you make like meme music or whatever, whatever whatever the younger generation is doing these days. Because, I mean, there's sometimes people be making funny songs, you know, with like really chaotic. Okay, that's a better way of putting it. It's like sometimes you don't want things to be too chaotic, and there's times where plugins just either do nothing, like they don't do much, or they're too chaotic. And you're like, I can't use this. Versus like this finds a good balance where it's like you could be chaotic with it, but it doesn't do that. Like it makes it simple enough for you to understand how to control the chaos. Whereas there's some plugins, man, if you don't know how to control the chaos, it just turns into a feedback loop and you're like, it's like your computer's screaming at you. All reasons, like CPU's blowing up and it's making this like loud noise, like super loud noise. So yeah, like my goal with the live streams, I think I'm going to start doing them on here on Wednesday. I was doing them on Twitch, but I think every Wednesday is going to be the goal of like having a live stream, making beats, talking about, okay, the nature of the music industry and just like, you know, what should we expect as creatives, especially if you're new to this, right? I'd much rather you not make the same mistakes I did and go into debt, like trying to make the home studio dream. Like, I'd much rather you realize it's possible, build up, be smarter with your finances, and just like realize that it's a journey. Like, even when I had the studio, I had all the things. I went to Sweetwater, got my degree, went to Sweetwater, worked there, was checking out some of the newest music tech. I was still filling a void, dude. Like I got to try the Moog 1 when it was in prototype. And that's like an $8,000 synthesizer. And I got to bring it home for a week when they were allowing us to do that. And even then, like I still felt like, oh yeah, this was cool. I made some cool music, but I just wasn't happy. Like I didn't have any joy or fulfillment. And I realized that, you know, before I really met Jesus, like I had struggled with finding, you know, purpose, because I felt very called to do this and very driven to do this. But it felt like every time that I tried to do that thing of like, okay, I want to go help, you know, do things with the music industry, or like, you know, it's like God would never allow it. And I didn't know God at that time. It was just always like, I get this opportunity, and now all of a sudden I find this dude, this guy's a Satanist with a cult. And I just feel very uncomfortable about this, so I'm going to hop out because I don't agree with it. And then eventually, like, I started connecting with people, and they're like, hey, so I got this $1 billion idea. And I'm like, okay, tell me more. And they're like, all right, so we want you and other people to work together, but basically we build this thing for the Rock Nation School of Music, which, if you know anything about Jay-Z and Beyonce, man, like, I don't rock with them either. I don't rock with Rock Nation. But they were basically trying to create a pipeline for, like, it would be like this. So you know how temp agencies work, where like if you need work, they would just call you, and you essentially like were on call and given a rate. They were trying to temp agency like people that were like me, like producers, mix engineers, and then like pipeline artists into deals so that they would go into the Rock Nation School of Music. And mind you, like the skill, you know, the thing I created was songwriter support. Like my goal was to help other artists directly. And the most difficult thing was like getting audio into like a Zoom call, or like getting audio into there and making it like easy and free. And now all these manufacturers, like I'm pretty sure if you have a Focusrite, Scarlett, I think there's a way for you to do virtual playback now on pretty much all of them. So it's easy enough to like set it up, or at least the technology's there, because all you need is loopback, and then it should work with Windows audio drivers. Whereas on Mac, that was already built in. So that's the other thing, is like Mac had that advantage in other ways. But it's like people always had that struggle. And even when I worked at Sweetwater, one of the biggest struggles was people buying the technology and not knowing how to use it. And like, even if you read the manual, right, it's tough to implement the stuff. And it makes you realize the same thing happens when you try to make something to help people. Like it's not the fact that it costs money. It's like the fact that it's not 100% easy to do. And so when they had someone like me and some other people that were involved, they were really trying to pipeline us into a label. And I said no. Like, I was like, no. It doesn't even matter at that time if I didn't have a job or anything. Like, I've realized more and more, you don't do things for money. When you do, like, you can't serve God and mammon. And the love of money is the root of all evil. Not because money is evil, but because there's a lot of people that would do anything for money. And what that turns into becomes a lot darker than a lot of, that's when some people are like, oh, that's just a conspiracy. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, it's become very evident if you see what's happening with P. Diddy, if you see what's happening with Jay-Z and Beyonce, you know the truth. Like, ultimately the open secret of Hollywood and that entire industry. And even when I worked with somebody who we ended up cutting it off, but she used to work for Disney. Like, it's very true. And yeah, I am too, because I'm so grateful I did. And I'm grateful more people, like, they've seen my content, and if they've been struggling with their walk with Jesus, like, it's helped. Like, people have openly said that I've just come into their feed at the best time. And I'm grateful because it's not me. Like, it's the Holy Spirit working through me, and I recognize that because I don't give the glory to myself anymore. It's not about whatever I could do. It's about what God does in our lives. Like, and ultimately, everything that I've went through, like, the fact that I've even been able to get in this apartment, rebuild my life, find other work, like, that wasn't possible without God. Like, that 100% wasn't possible without God, especially with my testimony. Like, some of the stuff that even happened for me to get to here right now, like, it was all God. Because when I was serving myself and doing things like that, people don't realize, like, darker forces, higher principalities, Satan even can give you the abilities, can give you gifts. Not like necessarily, like, God gives you the gift of life and also your creative skills, but he won't take it away from you because he loves you. But the physical things, like, oh, you want a house? Oh, you want a car? You want these things? Like, oh, you want your bills paid off? Okay, sure. Just don't serve God. And, like, literally, people don't realize that because we'll be so stuck on, like, oh man, how am I going to pay the bills and everything like that? And we don't trust God enough to provide. And he'll put us through situations where, like, if he doesn't want that for you, he'll have you lose it all. And that's exactly what happened. Is fortunately, like, I never went into bankruptcy or anything, but, like, I definitely, I had probably a really dope home studio. I had everything I wanted, but I was still very unhappy with life, over 300 pounds, smoking weed every day. Like, I wasn't drinking every day, but I was smoking weed every day, and I wasn't taking care of myself. And I recognized that I can't blame Sweetwater. I can't blame the company. Like, I did the best that I could at that time, but I recognized that it was something that what I was doing was eating away at my soul. And when you get involved with the music industry and you get to those levels where you're, like, doing things for money, you start recognizing that that's what happens to these people. That's what happens to these people in the entertainment industry. So I pray for them. Because now I understand, like, even before I really met Jesus, like, that's who was guiding me the whole time once I really started stepping more into spirituality. And when I started stepping away from it, life got hard, dude. Like, nobody said, like, it would be easy to walk with Jesus. A lot of times it's very hard because Jesus has to strip you Like, God has to literally strip you of all of the things of your old life and all of the things that you used to carry with you. And, like, that's what it really comes down to. He'll give you everything you need. He will provide. Trust that. But there's times where you don't realize that these things that you're holding on to, like physical or not, like they could be destroying you from the inside out. And that's what happens is like ultimately you get to this point too, even in spirituality and like and that's why the title of this live stream is very similar to the last one is like you get in that new age spirituality and you just get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm seeking the truth. And then you come to Jesus, like that you end up finding out it's the truth. And that's the craziest part is it's not that I never denied him. Actually, when I was younger, I did, because I used to be like atheist agnostic. And then as I got out of that and got more into spirituality, it was the trying to have you believe in Christ consciousness and that Jesus was a man, but like it doesn't make you realize that he died for your sins and that it leads you towards that path of like not fully accepting Jesus. And for me, he stepped in my life in a way that, because I know there's no coincidences in this reality, like I just knew it was him because it was scripture. It was literally seeing, I was walking down the street and I was going through it. I had just lost everything and I had saw a bumper. It was a license plate on somebody's truck that said John 9:25. And I was like, I just knew I had never really opened the Bible or scripture. I was like, what is this? So I looked it up. And the verse goes, whether he is sinner or no, I know not. What I do know is I was blind, but now I see. And it's the story of the blind man that Jesus healed. And everybody was coming up to him and confronting Jesus, like, confronting the blind man about Jesus, like, did you see him, like, and how is it that you can see right now? And that's just it, is that for some people, it's like through people like me or other people, brothers and sisters in Christ. Sometimes it's what happened to me, like, like you have to literally go through everything trying to find the truth. And then when you do, you end up leading back to Jesus, which is amazing. And I pray more people understand that. And that's what leads them to Christ. Because it's important. Like that relationship's important. But also too, if you do music, God gave you a gift for a reason. And he loves you and wants you to use it. But it's just tough sometimes to believe, like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Like, is this the thing that's going to actually lead me closer to God, especially like when you see what happens in the industry, man? And the answer is yes, if you choose to trust Jesus. Like that's the thing, is the more I've trusted him, the more I've been getting the energy back to like want to make music again and like want to work on like songs again and structure ideas. Because it took me a long time to really like come to him. Just because my family too, they never really said they believed in Jesus. They call people Bible thumpers, And now that I've gotten older, I realize what's important. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And where he's working on me right now is just like, the one sin that I've had is gluttony. That's been my biggest one. Like overeating. That's always been like my biggest struggle. But I've learned why. And I trust that he will take that away from me. Like I've been already doing a lot better. God bless, though, for real. That's amazing. Like, that's amazing. The people that I see in that actually come to my page, a lot of them, you know, they also have struggled with like addiction or other things, and God has been able to renew them in such amazing ways. Let me see if I can. There you go. I felt like that was what was missing. But yeah, honestly, I'm glad I started streaming on YouTube instead of Twitch anymore, because like I was on Twitch and it wasn't getting to people. It wasn't getting to people. It'd be like one person maybe. And it's just amazing that like God has been working in such amazing ways and showing me what I need to do and like where I need to go. Yeah, there you go. But also too, I feel like there's a very strong like Christian community on YouTube, like a stronger YouTube, like it's more open. That's amazing. So I'm a classically trained guitar player, and I feel like God blessed me with a business, but I just haven't moved on it because when I did the first time, I messed up and tried to focus too much on one person because I wanted a proof of concept, but I realized like that's not going to be the best way to do this. Like I really think if I was going to do songwriter support and offer what I was offering, which is basically like remote, and one, I'm going to offer a lower rate than what I was offering. But then two, like, I think what has been the biggest struggle is like realizing, okay, you know, I had to get life stuff situated first. Like I had to get back to some of my other jobs and like other work that I've done and work and pay off debt and do things like that. But now I realize, like, okay, you know, I think it's getting to that point where I'm going to finally be able to do something like that. You know, like start investing money into advertising and, like, just going for that dream. Because the goal isn't just like, okay, I teach people how to songwrite and, like, you know, it's more so, okay, yes, I can help you with getting your computer set up and getting everything set up, but also too, like if you're making songs, you're structuring and you're walking with God, like help you with that too. But realize like it's not me who's ultimately doing the work, because it's not about work, it's about the faith. It's really about what Jesus is doing in our lives. And like really I think Jesus will send the right people to you at the right time, like when you're actually ready. And that's what I've been learning. Oh, that's excellent. Yeah, that's something that for sure, like as somebody who, like I do delivery too, and I can only imagine just some of the because there's a lot of like elderly folk that I deliver to and like families, like how helpful that is. And that's what I've learned too, is like if your business is about helping people, I really think God will bless it more than if your business is about like drop shipping or something like that. You know, because like even with the grocery delivery I've been doing, like a lot of the stuff I do or the jobs that I pick, it's like elderly people. It's like people who have families who they don't have the time to go to the grocery store. They might be working from home. They got multiple kids, you know, and like actually being a blessing to people. And it comes back. Like it's come back in so many different ways and allowed me to like really start being more financially responsible. And it's not that I became financially irresponsible. That was the problem. Like I was good with it when I owned my home, but then I realized like I was just trapped. And then when I tried finding other work after leaving that company, I fell in that hole of like, oh, well, I'm going to just use my credit card and hopefully I can find some work. And I couldn't find work for almost like a year. So it was like I fell into that hole of like, I can't find anything. And I fell into that trap. But now, like, I've been able to start already paying off debts and tackle a lot of harder stuff. And even though I had to get a car, like I would much rather have that debt on my credit report than all of the other debt that I had. And it's not like I got so crazy in debt up to my eyeballs like 100K or anything like that, but I've been able to manage my finances enough to now start aggressively tackling debt, which is good. Like, 'cause people don't realize, like, being one check away from being homeless is never fun. Like, and if you can do things to negate that by just not living in your desires and just trying to get closer to God, like, it pays off. Like, you'll make a lot better decisions, and then God will bless you with the finances because you're ready. Like, it's not just because of, well, God wants to bless you, like, absolutely, but it's like when you're ready. And that's what I had to learn too, is like it felt like I've been trying too much to do things on my own instead of trusting him, because that, it's easy to run into that and have that fear in you of like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do this. And there's still been so many times where it's like, no matter how hard I tried, I wasn't making good enough money. But then when I don't try as hard and I just trust that it's going to go through, like, that's when I just randomly get blessings that I wouldn't have expected. And that's been a very powerful lesson of my life, is like, I really think that's also why I never saw the success in music the way that I thought I should, was me trying to control that too much, like, and not focusing enough on, what could I do to help people? Like, it's such a hard thing too, because our society promotes that whole like control, and that's that new age mentality of like, oh, manifest your own reality, and then you start to realize like, nah, dude, I'm good on that. Because every time that I tried, I definitely failed. And then on top of that, like, it doesn't do anything good for people. Like, it hasn't done that. It's more about trusting God. Like, that's ultimately what I've learned, is it's more about trusting God than trusting yourself or what somebody else tells you. But there are people along the way that can help you understand that and like give you the wisdom. Because sometimes too, like, that's the other thing that destroys your walk is people don't understand with, like, for example, with Eve in the Garden of Eden, right? She ate from the tree of knowledge and evil, of good and evil, which a lot of people don't realize. Like, us trying to know everything, like, it can lead you down that path. And that's what that new age spirituality tries to push onto you, is like, oh, you could be like God. You can know everything, and you weren't supposed to. Like, you literally weren't supposed to. And it's tough because we want to, man. Like, the world wants to, they treat you like you don't have anything good or anything of value if you don't know everything about everything. And you're just like, that's not how we're supposed to live. Like, we shouldn't be living like that. But it's tough because we're told otherwise. Oh, that's awesome. That's cool. You got one that's actually a luthier. Yeah, for me, like, I actually, this Sunday, my goal is to go to church for like the first time, because my walk with Jesus was, I haven't been to church. I've just been worshiping and praying and like reading the Bible and fasting and like doing things of that nature, right? And I just have been real skeptical on going to a church just because I want to go to a place that has sound doctrine. And I think now I'm not going to be afraid of like stepping out. And the other thing too is I've been working a lot. So I've been like, oh, and Sunday's it's like a very busy day for the job, the type of work I do. But I'm realizing, I'm like, why don't I just get up earlier and then go to church and then go work? Because I would still be able to work all day. Like, and that's literally the thought that I had was like, why am I not just going out and fellowshipping and like getting into the world of, Christianity and then getting into the word? And I think that that's going to be a good experience this weekend. Like, I really was just like, oh, I don't know. And then now I'm like, all right, I think that that's the move. I think that that's the next step. Right. And I think that's what's important because there's a lot of like, it's the same thing with the music industry, bro. Like, there's a lot of churches that you're realizing that it's more about tithing than it is like sound doctrine. And I mean, they need that so that they can get the support that they need to build the church. But at the same time, it's also like there's some churches where I'm almost concerned of walking into a prosperity gospel, and that's really what I've been more concerned about is like, is this something that's going to lead me towards like, oh, we're only praying about financial blessings and not actually about repentance of sin or like struggles that we walk with. It's like, is this more about me putting money on your plate and tithing to somebody who really isn't knowing Jesus and his teachings? Like, and it's tough because that line, there's people that cross that line all the time. And that's what I think is important is Ben really before even going to church. Like, I think what has been good is me reading the Bible first. Like, I haven't read it all the way through. I'm in Galatians right now, and I started all the way in Genesis, like in May of last year. And I've kind of just every day either like one chapter or like a few chapters. So I'm like in First Galatians I'm in First Galatians. I think I'm up to chapter 3. So I'm like right at the part where Paul, a lot of his teachings. And I felt like that was so important because it's taught me a lot about how I should treat myself and how I should treat life and how I should treat other people. And that's why I also think coming in knowing the scripture now and knowing it better before going to a church is going to be helpful, because then I'll really be able to discern, like, is this just somebody trying to sell me on like a prosperity gospel and like books and everything like that? I mean, especially because I live in Houston right now, so that's where like Joel Osteen and like, you know what I mean, like big mega pastor. Yeah, exactly. Right. And I think that's important too, is just like, it's good to tithe. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. What I'm saying is it's just like, oh, that's amazing. See, that's good. Is it's like good community and doing things like that, right? But that's exactly what I mean, is that I've been wondering, like, why haven't I? And it's not even that I've been making excuses. I really think I had been trying to get more in the word, and then now I'm realizing, hey, I think I'm ready to go to church. Like, I'm ready, because there's one right down the block from me. And I haven't looked at their YouTube page, but I think that's exactly what I want to do, is just go and worship and really experience it. Because the other times I've experienced church, like, I wasn't accepting of doctrine, but then the people that I was around, like, they weren't, even though they went to church, they weren't living in a way that I really think is, follows the doctrine. And we're not all perfect, right? But it made me question. I'm like, are you guys going to church because your grandma told you, or are you going to church actually to get closer to Jesus? And like, it's a good question because it's tough. Like, I think that some people it's both. You know what I mean? Like, because they're family and they have a deep relationship with that, which is amazing. But then there's other of us too, where it's like, I felt like where I was living, which was in Indiana, like there's a lot of people, I call them Sunday Christians, where, you know, they'll go and they'll go to church, but I don't know if they really repent. But I'd catch them at the bars like all the time, you know, and it was more like, yes, I'm Christian, but I live like the world, and we're not called to do that. And that's what I had to learn is like once I stepped away from all of it and learned all of it, it made me realize that like there's just a lot of people that they struggle with that. Like they struggle with it because it's like the world makes it look so cool, right? When it's not. Like that's the tough part. Yeah, I've considered that too. And there was one time where I thought what was it? See, that's the thing is I already know too with my experience because I also work with a stage union, so I have a lot of hands-on experience with very very large systems. Um, I would be, I actually have considered that, like, yeah, working with a worship team or doing things like that, but I haven't done it yet. Like I haven't gone and done that yet. I think, you know, that's another thing I've been wondering too is like help them out and see what ways I can help people out. Because I think, you know, with the music part, right, there's some people that think that Christian music could be only worship, but I disagree. I think that I think Christian music can be in any genre. It's really the message. Like, because there's so many people that say, like, oh, it's, you know, they use these frequencies and this and that. Whether there be some truth in that, if you really think about it, right, it's the message. Like, God can take anything and use it for his good. It's always the message. Like, if they're conveying a non-Christian message, because there's people that claim that they're Christian and play in the worship realm, but they serve two masters. And, like, but then there's people that they make hip-hop, they make stuff that would be considered, you know, on the darker edge of your side, but you hear the message and you hear what's behind it and you realize it is worship. And so I think that that's what's important at the end of the day is like, and that's what I want to help people with is like, what message do they want to convey with their music? What message do they want to put out there? How do they want to structure this? Because I have a lot of tools and just knowledge available from what I've learned over the years. Right now I'm in Texas. That's what I mean. Like when I moved to Texas, man, like I really felt closer to God, but this was before I really met him, but I felt called to be here. And it's been so amazing. Like honestly, Texas has allowed me to revitalize my whole life. Like really just get everything reorganized. Like I really do feel like God called me here for a reason. And it was something where the person I was working with, like it was really before I met Jesus, you know, and I felt like I was called out here, and they were someone who believes, but I don't know if they read the Bible every day. And I don't think they were going to church. Like they believed, but it's something where my question is because they were in the entertainment industry and they signed contracts with Disney at a young age, like what's it for? You know, now that I'm looking back on it, I'm like looking back on everything I experienced, right? It doesn't mean that they can't come back and like get deeper in their faith, right? But it makes me wonder, like, did they use it as like a way? Because that was like right before I gave my life to God. Like, they would talk to me about that. Like, we talked about that. And I was like, well, I believe in the teachings of Jesus. I just didn't at that time. Whereas, like, now I read scripture and I actually believe he is the Savior, you know? And it made me wonder if God had me experience all of that so that I could show people, like, there's, you know, when it comes to the industry, there's people that believe, you know, they believe in Jesus and really walk in their faith. And then there's some that use it as like the Kardashians, for an example. Which, crazy enough, she actually had like issues with them. Like, that's what kind of famous, she had dealt with that kind of famous people. She was I don't want to say what show she was on, but yeah, she was on a nationally syndicated show. And it was crazy how I even got linked with her. It was like I put an ad out on Instagram, and when I built songwriter support, and that was the first person to contact me that was a real person. And so it felt like, okay, you know, God's calling me to do this, but it was something where I didn't really know Jesus. Oh, that's cool. So, yeah, I mean, I'm a few hours away from Dallas, but... And Arizona was another one, too. But I moved to Houston because they were out here. And then I started to realize, dude, there's a lot of legends in Houston. There's a lot of amazing artists out here that are from here. But yeah, now I think, you know, when the time comes, we'll see, you know. We'll just see where it goes. Like, if God wants me to kind of evangelize mobily and, like, help others and help people with audio and music, things like that. Because, yeah, the wealth of knowledge I have with just Sweetwater alone, and then, you know, doing live sound. I'm still doing live sound every once in a while. Haven't been working on consoles in a minute, but more so like set up, tear down of the line arrays and patching and meeting people, right? There's been a lot of like opportunities that I've had to learn, and then eventually I think that's why God sometimes, like, we don't meet him until later in life, to show people how real he is and how he can just show up one day for you. Like, if you just don't want to believe, like, sometimes you have an encounter with him. Sometimes, sadly, it's like you're about to die. Sometimes it's like you losing everything. That was me. You know, some people, like, I even saw a dude recently. I don't know if you guys have been watching the stuff with, like, Billy Carson. And I used to believe that guy. Like, I used to believe Billy Carson and, like, all of that. And then he had that debate with Wes Huff, and some of the people that were there, like, that were involved in it, right? They ended up eventually just, like, realizing what the truth is. And then on top of that, giving their lives to Christ again. And then there were some people where they just, you know, they flat out saw it and didn't accept it. Because I at one point, even before I met Jesus, man, I just had that feeling in my soul. Like, this Billy Carson dude, I eventually got to that point, I'm like, is this dude grifting? And the answer was yeah, because I was just like, why is it that he's doing a giveaway for, like, $100,000 and, like, a Maybach or something like that, right? And I'm just like, dude, this does not feel right. None of this feels right. And this was way before the debate. And then he does all the podcasts, does everything. I'm like, okay, something still doesn't feel right about what he's doing. And then Wes Huff debates him. And it's not even really a debate. It was like a conversation that led to debate. And now it's showing people that. And then the next week I see somebody, and it was weird. It was like God was putting this in my feed to show me that I was not alone in my testimony, in, like, okay, I was on the dark side of spirituality. I didn't understand it. And then Jesus encountered me and then showed me the truth, like, of the matter. And I saw a dude who, like, literally his whole page for like a year or two, he had almost 100K subscribers. It was like about crystals and stuff like that. And he was still on that. And I was like, no, I don't know. And then, like, 2 weeks later, I see a video from him about having an encounter with Jesus in meditation, like, and giving his life to Christ and realizing, like, everything that he went through, all the experiences he had gone through, and, like, realizing that I think that that's what it is that sometimes, we get so lost that the only way we would believe, or even other people may believe, is if, like, you went through all of that. It's true, though, and I'm seeing it more and more. Like, I think that that's the hard nature of the music industry too, though. Is like a lot of them, if you know, like, the really dark, deep stuff, like the Masonic stuff, or like them believing in Thelema and like going into Aleister Crowley and all that, right? And like understanding that, you understand how dark and satanic the music industry is. But that's the industry. Like, that's not the people who believe. And there's sometimes we get so caught up into it because they'll offer you everything. But then you start realizing it, like, most of these people are broke. Like, they're really broke, and not just spiritually, but like materially too. Like, they don't even own the houses, they don't even own the vehicles, they don't even own all that stuff. And like, look at 6ix9ine right now. That dude is literally getting all of his vehicles repoed by the IRS. Drake might be in financial hard straits because, I mean, the dude's basically, on Kick, Rumble, doing doing like gambling streams and doing things of that nature. And you start realizing, like, that's what they gave up. They gave up salvation for the things of the world. Yeah. Was he the one that was he the guy who used to be a warlock? I can't remember because that name sounds familiar. Because I know that, like, that for me, what it is I saw it. Like, I didn't see rituals or anything, but I saw enough to know. And it'd be crazy. Even before I gave my life to Christ, there have been moments that I would talk to people. Okay, yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. There'd be moments where I would talk to people, and I would be like, I don't know, there's something outside of me, but when people try to mess with me and stuff, like, there's like a protection. And every time I would talk about, I don't rock with masonry, I don't rock with that side of the industry, either people, like, left, and they got real nervous and they got real scared, or there's actually one guy, I was on the phone with him. This was crazy, and I'm going to talk about it. So he had done songs with, like, Trey Songz and a few people, and I think his dad, or like someone he's related to, is actually very high up at Atlantic Records. And I'm, like, on the phone with this guy, and he's drunk at the time, and I'm talking to him, and I was just like, we're talking about beliefs. And at this time, even though I didn't believe in Jesus as my savior at the time, I did not rock with masonry. I did not rock with any of that belief system. And he was like, "Oh, I'm a Mason. We believe in Jesus." And like, people don't understand, like, yes, they believe in Jesus, but they pervert a lot of the teachings of the Bible. And people use masonry as a way to, like, connect with other people. And so I'm talking about this, and I'm like, dude, I don't know, but, like, and I wasn't saying this to him, but I was just saying it. I was just like, yeah, man, whenever people try to, like, mess with me or do something wrong with what I do, like, bad things happen to them and I can't explain it, and I don't wish that upon them. And I had sent this guy guitar loops, mind you, And not even like a moment after me saying it, his wife gets on the phone and she was like, because I used to go by Midnight Swami, and she was like, Swami, he just hit his head and he's bleeding out of his head right now. I'm like, what? Like, I thought he was, I was talking to him about this, and then it's like, boom. Like, and that's why I think, too, even if you don't know or you haven't fully accepted, like, God's still protecting you. There's angels protecting you. Because he's like mid-conversation, just goes unconscious and hits his head. His wife's a nurse, so she knew. Like, she saw it happen. And she was like, I don't know. And he wasn't like too drunk or tripped. It was like he just went unconscious and hit his head. And then he goes to the hospital. He calls me back. And I'm like, do you remember anything that we were talking about? And he said no. And I was like, all right. Yeah, that's what I mean. Is I think that people don't realize, like, God loves you. And when you're like, even if you're messing up, like, there are things where, like, there's something outside of you protecting you, especially if you're one of God's children. Like, and there's just times where people give up their free gift of salvation to get material gain. And I think that that's what was going to happen. Like, if he would have taken the stuff that I had and just went with it. And so that's why I want people to know is, like, the multiple times I've dealt with the industry, a lot of it's very Masonic, satanic, or a mixture of, like, leading kind of into both. And a lot of these people, they're like, oh, I'm spiritual. And then they don't tell you the rest of it. And then they try to lead you into buying products or doing the things of the industry, like hyping up your numbers and just not actually serving God. And then if you're not serving God, they want you to make music because then you're serving your flesh. Like, you're just, like, giving people music to go kill somebody or live within their fleshly desires. And it's like, that's why the message of your music is so important. That's why it's so important. Like, you could literally have a song with no beat and you saying something, and that message is what was important. And that's why I say it's like God transcends any genre or, like, thing that people feel. What it really is he loves you and wants a relationship with you, and you need to accept him and let him come in and heal those parts of you that you struggle with. And it's not going to happen right away, but, like, trust. Because that's been a big thing with me, is, like, just trusting, the things that I've struggled with, that he can deliver me from that. And he has in so many ways. Like, even this past year, I'm like, I don't even know how I went from homeless and negative nothing in my bank account to getting, like, not sleeping a night on the streets, finding a job, being able to get a car again, getting out of Amazon, and, like, being able to have a regular work life, streaming, do things like that. Like, that's all God, and I give him the glory, because there was no way, dude. Like, it's been too crazy over the past few years, everything that I've realized about my life. Like, that's why the testimony is important too for people. Like, your testimony and telling people about what Jesus did for you. Because I think some people struggle to believe that it's possible. Like, even if you've sinned a lot or you've made a lot of mistakes, that he doesn't love you. Like, that's the exact opposite. He saw all of it, and he loves you and cares a lot. That's always been the big thing, is, like, I think sometimes too, because we don't see love from the world, that we struggle with finding that love in him. And that was a big one for me, is, like, realizing that a lot of times the world won't show you love. Like the world doesn't show you love, and there's a lot of people that experience that, and then they take out that reality on other people, and like sometimes you do it unknowingly, like me too, or you might feed into habits that do not show love to your temple, to you, like whether that be like excessive consumption of alcohol or drugs, or just like it could be addiction, it could be like overeating, it could be all of those things, like that doesn't mean God doesn't still love you and wants to see you win, like, because I don't think I'd be here where I'm at if that wasn't the truth. But yeah, I wonder if I should eventually start reacting to kind of like the music industry stuff too. Because I was making videos like that on TikTok, and they were doing okay. Okay. Yeah, that's crazy. I was doing all that while I was talking and I didn't even listen to it. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to keep that one. Okay, you know what? I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to flatten these, and then boom, boom. Actually, no, it should be. Okay, we're going to reverse them. Oh, yep. Meh, meh. And, there you go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's another trick too, is if you feel like, okay, a sound sounds kind of boring or you're using it too much, I like to reverse them. Like take the same idea and just flip them. But to keep the chord structure, like just edit it in a way where the reverse edits start like right at the chord. So it's like every time that it reverses, it like reverses into the chord in the same exact structure that you already arranged everything. So this one, oh yeah, lead into it with this. There you go. It's like a PS2 sound at the end. Thank you for everybody who's been sticking around for the stream. Probably gonna do another hour or two and then call it. I usually do about 4 hours, but I don't know. I think I might make Wednesday like the day. Come on here, start earlier in the day and like end it at 9, something like that. Or maybe end it earlier. But also too, like go hit the gym and go do everything else like beforehand at 8 o'clock in the morning like I should. Like a regular human being instead of waking up at like 12. All right. But this one, so I'm going to save that. I'm going to start something new. This one, I'm wondering what I should do. I want to try, because I'm not going to lie. I wish they didn't do this for a limited time, but this augmented mallets, this was such a cool free plugin that Arturia offered. This thing was so good. Like some people are like, "Oh, I don't think the sounds are that original," and I'm like, "Dude, they sound good. They're very easy to work with." All right. Let me see. Okay, hold on. Yeah. Okay, randomize. Boom. I wonder if I should do like a different sound. Ooh. That's why layering is important. Okay, so keyscape. Let me see. I think I want to do like a. Let me do like a big cinematic grand. Oh yeah. Something like that. I'm wondering if I do like a So let me see here. Let me try the Sublab. What? Sublab? Find something a little different. I appreciate everybody who's been hopping on the stream. I know I've been quiet this last second because I'm like, dang, I was yapping. But I felt like it needed to be said. Sound like a note. Jump it up the octave. Nope, that just was not the sound I'm looking for. Okay. Shaper box on the hats. Let's see. Let me try something crazy. Let's see. Glitch. Nope. It's just- That's why this plugin's fun. Like, even the presets are crazy. So what I'm wondering, you know what? I'm going to do that Motions plugin again. Because I like doing this for making creative hi-hats. Like, yeah, I made something that was like a cool triplet rhythm, but I want to make something that's just different. Print it, only have it happen a couple times, like once or twice. That was wild. Okay, that was wild. That's what I was looking for. Because sometimes it's like you get an effect, and then you add it, and then you try to record it, so then you can like edit it. There it goes. So this is freeze and flatten, so that's kind of similar. Sounds like an ocean sound. You know what? I'm gonna like put that sound in just at a random part. That might be a cool little Easter egg type vibe. You know, I'm also wondering, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know why, but it feels like every time you make something, right, and then you half time it, it just sounds that much cooler. I would say most of the time. hi-hats. That might do it too. Like some open hats. They're like some different percussion. Feel like I'm getting closer. Also feel like getting closer to the end of this stream. on the second one. You know, I'm wondering too if that's just like for the There we go. Okay. So now we're getting somewhere. I think it is worth arranging. I'm going to at least do a quick arrangement probably before I end the stream right around 9. Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness. I'm going to use the restroom real quick. I'll be right back. I think that's kind of like the first verse idea. That's like a verse. Then this is like the hook. So like this idea, this one. That's like the start of the hook. So it'd be like. All right. Yeah, I think we got us a beat right here. Let me see. So it'd be like, it's kind of like the. That's what I've learned about beat making is making a big idea and then just kind of cutting it out and chopping it up into pieces. did I mess up? So this is the hook, verse, hook, verse. That's not the hook. Okay. I think I'm going to intro my beat. Actually, might be more like this. Let's see. Right. Just thinking, you know? Yeah. Well, I think the stream is almost done. Man, what an epic stream again. Like, honestly, I think switching to YouTube was the best move I could have made. It seems like every time I stream on here, it's always a good experience. Like on Twitch, it can be... I feel like with Twitch, you're competing so much. Like way more than you would with this. I appreciate everybody who hopped in today. For real, like, y'all are awesome. Glory be to God. For real. I'd love to do this more. I think I should. And, not gonna lie, if you don't live in Texas, HEB, HEB has some amazing, like, look at this. I'm so excited to try this. If you catch my stream later. This hot habanero. Fresh salsa. Like, it's fresh. But hey, like, honestly, the stream was great. Thank you to everybody who just popped in and, like, said what was up. And just thank you for everybody being a blessing today. And if you haven't, thank God. Like, for real. Because God is good. And, worship Jesus, man. For real. Because that's what's so interesting. You get into this New Age spirituality, and there's a lot of people that have been saying this. You worship anything but Jesus, and they got a problem with it. So just know, God loves you. Jesus loves you. I love you. Appreciate everybody who hopped in. Have a blessed day. Unless, hold on, I didn't hit stop. We got 10 minutes. I don't know who's been watching, but yeah, I'm just like at the very end of my stream. I'm like, I like the idea that I made. I might as well just pop it back up again. Oh, infinity loop. I'll pop it back up again. But I'm like indifferent. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's amazing. I think I've made better stuff recently. But, sometimes you just gotta make stuff and try stuff and just keep trying stuff. That's funny. As soon as I'm like, I don't know if I should keep streaming, go get some salsa, that's when the stream actually ramps back up and, like, people are here. I don't know if it's because I have, like, dropouts or something. I don't think it does, though, because when I play it back, it doesn't seem like it drops out, or there's any, like, frame drops. Oh, this spicy salsa looks really good. Shake well before serving. See, that's how I know it's good, because it's just all fresh ingredients. You gotta shake them up. There we go. That's what I was trying to pop off. Alright. This is how you know it's about to be good. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. One thing about Texas I love is HEB. I cannot deny. HEB just has all the best fresh stuff all the time. And if they don't, that's pretty crazy, honestly. It'd be like that sometimes, but very far and few between. So, taste review, this hot habanero. Ooh. It's got a nice lime smell to it. Fresh salsa. We're gonna see. I love spicy food too, so this is not gonna hurt me. And if it does good, that's what I wanted. Hey yo. Oh, it's already clearing up my sinuses, bro. Like, this is good. Going in for another, we're gonna see. Hot habanero. Look, you cannot beat fresh salsa. Pace is crap compared to that. No says award winning too, and I'm like, dang. You guys like salsa? Fresh tortilla chips? Man, that was an amazing stream, y'all. Like, honestly, the last few streams I've done on here, like, I feel like YouTube is actually showing it to people. And not only that, it's showing it to people who actually would be interested in what we're going to talk about and what we're doing on here. So, like, I thank everybody who's been hopping on these streams, like, checking it out, saying what's up. Like, I want to work with people more. I definitely want to just keep this going and make it a more regular thing if I can. Just because I really think that it's something I really enjoy. Like, streaming is fun. And it's something where I enjoy making music, connecting with people, and honestly eating some good food every once in a while. But also, too, just talking about the nature of kind of the industry. I feel like it needs to be talked about more. And it's something where there's a lot of people who might be lukewarm or struggling with their walk with Christ, and they don't understand, like, there's something outside of them that it's very dark, and it's trying to stray you away from anything but Jesus. And that's what's so interesting is I watched a video of a guy who he basically did all the marketing and like high up stuff for some of these gurus. And they all basically, if you worship anything but Jesus, like, that's what's fine. But if the second you start worshiping Jesus, that's where there's a problem. Like, that, when I started realizing that, I was like, all right, yeah, there's clearly, it's clearly like trying, and it's crazy too, because they get angry about it. Like, they'll get very angry about it if you worship anything but, if you worship everything else but Jesus. You start bringing Jesus into the equation, and man, they got a problem. And, like, I get it. There's church hurt, and there's people that are genuinely, like, they struggle with their walk because there was some stuff that happened. But at the same time, a lot of them, it's a grift, dude. Like, it's a grift for money. And they just prey on people who are very stuck, like I was. And I didn't fall for all of them, but I fell for some. And I pray that God gives you the discernment to do the right thing and keep going. And on that note, I think I'm going to end this stream here. I appreciate everybody who's just hopped in and said what's up. I wonder if, like, this is the right time that I start doing them, like, earlier in the day, later in the day. But every Wednesday is my goal. Is we meet here, we talk about God, we make music, have a good time. Like, that's exactly my goal with this stream. And on top of that, I honestly am wondering eventually about, once this further progresses, like, reacting to videos and talking about it. Just because I've realized there's a lot of things that go on in the music industry, and that's more the focus I want to keep this on, because I think that, I don't want to be, like, tearing down other Christians or, like, doing things like that. I think there's a lot of channels that have been coming up that are like, oh, this person exposed, and this person's a backslider, this person is a wolf in sheep's clothing, and I'm kind of like, I don't know, man. I feel like you're just upset that you're not getting the same reach that they are, even if they may be teaching false doctrine. Like, there's a level where I think some of it is true. Like, they're coming on here and being like, oh, this person's teaching false doctrine, and then they prove it. And then there's sometimes where I feel like they're just reaching because they know it works. Like, they know that there's people that want to just talk about people. But for me, I want to talk about like a real thing that I see, because I think that a lot of people that make music or are in this, right, they don't understand the power that they have with what they say and what they do in their songs. And they think like, oh, I'm going to just talk about my anxiety and my depression and all these things, when it's like, that's what the devil wants, dude. That's how they make their money. That's like the major grift of that, is that they want you talking about depression and wanting to off yourself and how you're on drugs and how you struggle with that. Like, they want to keep that going, because if you keep pushing that message, somebody's going to listen to it and somebody's going to think that's cool, and that's not okay. Like, it really isn't. Like, and I try to explain that to people, is like, look, it's important to talk about your testimony and your trauma, but when you start putting it into music and you start talking about it in a way that doesn't reflect any sort of positivity, it just talks about how you have problems and all of that. That's exactly what the devil wants. Like, that's it. Have you noticed that's what's popular? Like, that's always the music that makes the most waves. And it's not, people want to say, oh, it's humans, when that's what's being promoted. Like, that's the actual promotion. And that's what I think is the major problem with the music industry, is that we have a lot of power as people who can create music. God gave us this gift for a reason, and it can be used for good. You have a choice. You know, I look at this much like I look at a hammer. It is a tool. You know, you can use this tool to build a home or to bash someone's brains in. You have a choice. And at the end of the day, I know what I want to do with this tool. So I thank you, everybody who's just hopped on the stream, shared, liked my page, subscribed. Like, y'all are awesome. Keep it going. I have a Discord. I think I put the tag in on the stream. If not, I'll probably do it after stream, or I might just pop it in the chat right now. If you guys want to hop in the free Discord, that's kind of my goal, is to make it something like a community. And on top of that too, like, I would like to also let you guys know I do have a Patreon. I was trying to figure out how I could get all the free Patreon. Like, I made a whole bunch of content and then put it on the Patreon. And I was trying to find a way to do it where, you know, now I can make it so the free people can watch it. But I don't know how I could do that. And I lost a lot of the files when I went homeless. Like, I had made it before then, and it was about like songwriting. And some of them were about mixing and mastering too. And they're like paid course content. But I reduced them down to like $5. I might drop it even lower, just so, like, I want it to be accessible. I just don't have access to the files anymore. So, like, that's exactly why I want to share it with everybody, because I felt like what I built just gave a more structured way for people to be able to essentially, like, get access to tools. Like, just get access to the tools that they need. Let me see. Hold on. Oh, that's the wrong one. Let me see. Invite people. Was it this one? I thought it was. Expires never. There you go. And then let me see if it'll... What? It just says hidden music copy button. That's some malarkey, man. So I want to invite people to the stream, you know? Like, I think that... Oh, maybe I have to do that and then do it. Okay. Invite people. Bop. No Bop House. Okay. There you go. So, yeah, if you guys want to hop on the Discord, it's like a new thing. I developed it a little while ago, and there was another time where I tried building a Discord. So I don't have any mods or anything. It's basically fresh. But I'd love to connect with everybody, and, like, if you guys are already subscribed to the channel, thank you. Like, what a blessing. Everything has been really good. And I thank everybody for just checking it out and being like consistently watching this. I'm kind of shocked that YouTube has made it easy, actually is pushing me in the algorithm and is actually pushing my videos. Because I feel like for the longest time, that's been a very difficult thing. Oh, and thank you, David. I didn't realize. Yeah, that sign it. Yeah, for real. That salsa, man. Like, okay, yeah, it just wasn't showing up on my phone for some reason. Because I usually use my phone for all of it. There you go. But yeah, I have the Discord up in there. And yeah, and I don't come into agreement with a lot of it too. Because the other thing is, a lot of people don't even know with diabetes, like you one unless it's type 1, a lot of it is like totally reversible. Like, is if you actively do things to take care of yourself, and fasting helps with that too. And if you've never fasted, I highly suggest it. It's a good thing. It helps you get closer to God. And I've heard some Bibles are even trying to remove fasting out of the verse where it's like, what was it? I think it was Jesus talking about letting the demon out of someone, and they were saying that fasting and prayer is the only way that you can remove it, essentially. Yeah, so highly suggest that. As I take a bite of a chip, yeah, but I still do on a regular basis, and I go to God with how I should fast. So I suggest you do too. God bless you all. Thank you for hopping in the stream. I appreciate everybody who was a part, and y'all have a blessed evening. Take care now.